Welcome to the Excellence at Work podcast, where we explore the strategies and best practices that drive business success. I'm Rachel Cooke, COO of Brandon Hall Group and the host of our podcast, along with members of our executive team. In each episode, we'll dive into the latest trends, insights, and real-world examples from some of the most exciting leaders from organizations worldwide. Be part of our journey and learn from the best as we discuss innovative approaches and cutting-edge technologies for talent management, learning and development, leadership, diversity and inclusion, and more. Hi, this is Rachel Cooke with Brandon Hall Group. Welcome to our Excellence at Work podcast. Today with me, I have Todd Smith, the Executive Director of Enterprise Learning and Development from Estée Lauder. Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Well, it's great to see you today. Great to have you with me on our podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about one of your programs, your award-winning programs. This year, you won, or Estée Lauder won, and your amazing team, 3 HCM Excellence Award, and congratulations. And today, we're going to be talking about ELC Enterprise Athlete, along with our guest, Dr. Lauren Hodges, the founder of Performance on Purpose. Hi, Lauren. How are you?
So good. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. And Todd, before we get started, can you share a little bit more about your background? I know you've been with Estée Lauder for quite some time, and you've been also a great partner of ours, and I've always enjoyed our conversations and you speaking at our conference and all the great work that you are involved in. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks so much for having us today. Yes, I am a veteran at the Estée Lauder companies. I started in 2004, so I just hit 20 years. And I think at my last count, 9 different roles within the organization, starting out in sales and education, and then eventually moving into education, learning and development, and then in multiple roles within HR. And Brandon Hall Group came onto our radar around 2017, 2018. We were building a program that was specifically onboarding for our folks that work in our retail locations around the world, because they're just, being thrust from working in a store into now managing a store or a counter, and they needed really robust leadership development. And so we worked for a long time in that program, and people said, "Did you submit this for a Brandon Hall Award?" And we were like, "No, we didn't think that we could, or we didn't think that we should." And so that was sort of the beginning. And we won 10 awards that year. That was our first outing with Brandon Hall. And I think now we're up to about 23 awards that we have with you over the subsequent years. And we've submitted every year. And what I love most about my job, which relates to this, is that I get to do so many different kinds of things. I get to work on so many different kinds of programs to support our employees at Estée Lauder companies. And we've been honored to be recognized by Brandon Hall Group across many different initiatives and programs, everything from people leadership programs to this enterprise athlete program that we're going to talk about today. And it's just a thrill to be affiliated with Brandon Hall Group, to come to the conferences, to recently have participated in them and have a chance to speak at the conference last year, and to be a part of this podcast. It's just a wonderful opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, Todd. And for us, it's also a privilege that we have the opportunity to be part of this community where we recognize companies for initiatives and for hard work and achievement. And, through our approach, where we have a network of judges that are from around the world, and also our team at Brandon Hall Group. So it really gives us a good perspective of what is happening, what's working, what are the challenges, how are companies overcoming those challenges. And, in addition to the awards, Brandon Hall Group is also focused, or primarily focused, on research and data. And the awards gives us another element that helps shape our understanding, so that we're able to share insights and helpful resources to professionals like you, Todd, and Lauren, to be able to equip you with tools and insights to make your jobs better. And we're kind of all in it together, which is
Yes.
nice in a way.
Such an incredible benefit of being affiliated with Brandon Hall Group for sure. The access that I have to the incredible thought leadership, the analysis that's provided to us, the research, the discussions. I really have found it so beneficial to incorporate Brandon Hall into our thinking, into our strategies over the years, and to not only learn from the incredible leaders at the organization, but also because of the reach that you have and the access that you have to all of these best in class companies across so many industries. It really just helps inform how we think about what we do from a human capital perspective at ELC. So it's an incredible partnership.
Well, let's get started and let's dive into the program that you have here. And Lauren, well, I know Lauren's involved and has been an intricate part of helping your team. And can you share a little bit about the relationship and the connection that you two have, and how you have, how you kind of paired up here to focus on this initiative?
Yeah, sure. So my background is in human performance sciences and learning sciences, and I have been very lucky to spend my career consulting with different organizations on the intersection between those spaces, human performance, learning, and leadership sciences. One of those early clients was actually the Human Performance Institute, which our program is based off of their flagship program, the Corporate Athlete. Johnson & Johnson now owns the Human Performance Institute. They acquired it in the early 2000s. But around that time, I was consulting with the team there and helping them renovate that Corporate Athlete program and helping them to design their resilience program. And in, 2019-ish, 2018, 2019, J&J decided to close their commercial sales for HPI. And at that time, Estée Lauder Companies was one of their longest standing clients. They had a 30-year strong relationship. It was a very close relationship. And so Estée Lauder Companies had an opportunity now to make a decision on how they wanted to move forward with carrying on the legacy and the research that was really integral to their organization. And lucky for me, I was introduced to Estée Lauder Companies and the energy team, and I came on board to help them in the same function as a subject matter expert and a learning designer, and bring that perspective over and create a really very bespoke version of a very classic course, the Corporate Athlete, and bring that to life in a really meaningful way, in a very personal way for the Estée Lauder Companies employees.
Fascinating. And as I was mentioning, that I had went through the Corporate Athlete program, I want to say about 10, maybe 9 years ago. And so I totally relate to the overall experience and all that it offers. So I'm sure when they were making that decision to not offer it commercially, that must have been kind of a hard adjustment or a consideration, because it is really valuable and just a great framework to helping individuals and teams perform at their best, but looking at holistically the entire person. And so why don't you share what does that framework look like, and why is it so valuable, and why did you make the effort to continue the program, even though it wasn't going to be supported by Johnson & Johnson anymore, or the Institute?
You
want to take it, Lauren? I can take it.
Sure. Maybe I'll take the what.
Yeah.
Maybe you could take the why.
Yeah. Perfect.
To move in that direction. I mean, the crux of it, if listeners have not heard about the Corporate Athlete or energy management theory or what it is, and you hit the nail on the head, Rachel. It is really what we call a total person design. That's how we've built the enterprise athlete, which is our version of the Corporate Athlete, or evolution of it, I should probably say. And what it really is an opportunity to look at ourselves as Estée Lauder Company says it we're leading from every chair, and we have to look at ourselves as these uniquely integrated energy systems. We draw our ability to show up at our best from different areas of our life, personally, professionally, but physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and having that sense of alignment between all of these different areas of our life, and how we invest and manage our energy has a very, very powerful influence over the way that we are able to lead ourselves and lead others and show up at our highest potential, not just at work, but at home where it really matters as well. And so the theory is not ours. It's decades long of research, starting in the early 80s and 90s, from the two gentlemen who founded the Institute, Dr. Jim Lair and Dr. Jack Grapple. And they have been studying this idea of performance sciences for a really long time. And so that is sort of the crux of the energy management theory and the basis for the enterprise athlete. And then Todd, if you want to share why I decided to pull that in.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I want to pick up on the thread on some of the things that you both mentioned. Corporate athlete, because of the long-standing relationship with Estee Lauder companies, really, we consider it a legacy program, and it's really interwoven into the culture of who we are. But if we go back traditionally for a long time, it was reaching a relatively small number of employees because it was offered, as most things were, an instructor-led course. So it would be tangential and added on to a meeting or an offsite, something like this. So it was kind of a slow burn, I would say, within the culture. And like everyone else, 2020 hit, and we were like, what are things that we have that we could support employees with? And, of course, this came up because well-being, energy management, physical, emotional, mental well-being, and purpose, and an employee's sense of purpose and why they show up each day. I think in the midst of those early days of the pandemic, I think a lot of people were really struggling in that space. And we were really just seeing this crashing of all the different aspects of our lives into one another, which maybe had been separate for a long time. And so we're like, well, why don't we digitize this? Why don't we scale this? Why don't we try to build this in a way that we could reach thousands of employees at a time instead of just a few dozen in a course? And so that was really the impetus to it. We brought Lauren on board with us, and we really started to think about what are the pieces of this that we could convey within a digital environment. How could we then lean into the benefits of a digital environment and then create something a little bit different and a little bit more of an experience so that it doesn't take away from the instructor-led if and when we get to execute that again, which we do now, thank goodness. But how can it enhance it? And how can we create an increased ecosystem for enterprise athletes? So employees have choice, and they have different modalities and different ways of interacting with the content. And it was a pleasure, and it was fun. It was a bright spot in a bit of a dark time because we were sort of benefiting from thinking about these things. And as Lauren said, this total person design and helping employees to think about, how do I show up at work and in my life as my best self? And none of us are perfect at it. It vacillates, it oscillates on a daily basis. And it's just about being aware and understanding where you are in that moment as you think about these different aspects, different reservoirs of your energy, and then having tools to say, I'm a little bit off in this area today, but I have tools and I have resources and I have ways to kind of shift that for myself as we continually try to struggle for balance and struggle for work-life harmonization. And navigate all of the demands that are on the modern executive of 2025, at a large organization. It's a lot of responsibility, and we all have all these robust lives outside of work as well. So that was the evolution of it. And that was why we sort of decided to build it and invest in it and scale it.
And how do you, so it sounds like it's more part of having access to these resources and having different levels of connection or training or education on these different areas that help you gain more energy or help you perform better. So how does that look like? Is this something that the individual can choose to, or do you have more prescribed approach? We're going to send, because historically it would be pretty costly to send, and mostly for executives to go, for a 3-day or 5-day program where they have a comprehensive, approach to diving deep into each area, and to, spending that kind of time and also away. That was costly. Now it sounds like you have a variety of different versions, kind of depending on the individual, timing, and what is needed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We have, because of Lauren and other partners like her, we've been able to create a team that she referred to earlier as the energy team. And so it's a group of trainers within the organization that we have prepared to be able to deliver the content to employees. And we continually look for people who are passionate about it, who step forward and say, I'd like to get more involved. I'd like to train to become a facilitator. So it's sort of this organic growth. And then the more that we have, the more employees that we can touch. So as we think about that ecosystem that I talked about, and to your point, Rachel, it depends on the needs. It can be, I'm just an individual contributor coming forward. I'd like to explore this content. I'd like to sign up for a session, an open enrollment session that I join, and I learn the concepts. And then I can also use this digital version that we call the Enterprise Athlete Digital Experience on our learning management system. And you can continue to deep dive into the content that way. And it just becomes this sort of organic way of looking at the content from different lenses and experiencing it in different ways. We built the digital experience to be somewhat modular so that you can enter it at any point. You don't have to follow it linearly, and you can come and visit it really in the moment of need. If you're feeling depleted in a specific reservoir, you just want to sort of get some tools or get some inspiration, that's there for you as well. We incorporated a whole series of diagnostics into the digital experience as well. So the employee can come to it and ask themselves some of these questions that we don't always stop and ask ourselves about: how am I really doing in these different aspects? And based on the output, I can make some choices about how I want to navigate the content, and then also what I might want to do with it when I actually close my laptop and go back to my life, right? And then to build on it, we have intact teams come forward and say, I've got a group of 20 people. I'd like for us to go through the enterprise athlete experience together. We're going to do the digital experience as the pre-work, and then we're going to participate in session together because I wanted to be part of the culture of my team. I want to have team meetings now going forward where I talk about it, where I ask people how they're doing and their energy, and we have a common language and an understanding. We have people coming forward, senior leaders, who say they'd really like this to be embedded within the culture of their organization. They would love people to come forward and say, I have wellness goals that I'm going to articulate, that I'm going to share with someone to then hold me accountable for those as well. So that it doesn't just become, that was interesting and I think I got something out of it, but now I don't remember and I didn't commit to anything tangible. So there's not going to be any real behavior change as a result of going through it. So we keep discovering new ways to have leaders, employees, teams, go through it and think about it in a way that supports whatever's going on in their business. We had a wonderful colleague, and I showcased her in our submission for our Brandon Hall Awards down in Latin America, who created a series of challenges for her team. And they had so much fun doing it. She submitted all these photographs of us, of her team, eating healthy snacks, climbing the stairs of the office building, taking stretch breaks, taking recovery breaks, writing in journals, sharing with one another about their lives outside of work, their purpose, their families, why they do what they do, and creating a whole different sense of connection to the enterprise athlete. It was a really fantastic showcase of what it could do if someone commits to it, and I would say the appetite that exists with employees to want to lean into this kind of thing, because it helps them, again, total person design. You don't just think of me, Estée Lauder Companies doesn't just think of you as a worker bee, right? You're a person and all the things that you bring to your job and to your experience at the company.
And I just wanted to throw one thing just to underline a couple of things you mentioned, Todd. One was it is also integrated into their people leadership program and their development. That is fresh on my mind because I was just actually delivering this enterprise athlete this morning, and I will again this afternoon, to a group of their rising leaders, which is phenomenal. So that now it's really intricately embedded or baked into the development of leaders and future leaders. They're going to be able to cascade that down to their teams and share these principles. And what I think is the most beautiful part of this is it's really fully aligning with what the learning sciences space tells us is the best way to push out any information or content that we want to deliver, which is, I think you mentioned earlier, Todd, in a moment of a learner's need. And so we have different ways of delivering this content and different ways that they can engage with it, where we're going to meet them where they're at. You know, it's the digital experience is almost like a choose your own adventure type of thing. To your point, Todd, you take an assessment, it's a diagnostic, and you're given a recommendation on how to navigate the course, but you can come in and out anytime that you want. And I think that is probably my favorite feature of this entire program is how accessible it is when you need it and exactly at that right moment. Just wanted to throw that out there too.
Yeah. I love that you're doing it today, later again.
It's very enterprise.
It's happening. Yes.
And are these sessions, are these virtual that you're meeting with the teams, or are they? Okay.
Yeah,
it gives you a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, there are in person as well as virtual.
We had our travel retail, which is like the duty free, right, in airports that you see around the world, is a big part of our business. So they had a very large travel retail Asia Pacific meeting just a couple of weeks ago. And the senior leader there said, it's going to be a lot of business talk, and we have a lot of really aggressive strategic goals and objectives we have to achieve as a leadership team. And I want to embed enterprise athlete. Please help me. Please prepare me to bring these in. So we created like a version bespoke and customized for her. You know, she didn't have time to become certified as an instructor, but we were like, let's just give you some seeds to plant with your leaders so that they can think about it in a different way, bring it back to their teams in a different way. And to Lauren's point, just start to have these conversations and start to continually like feed people in the organization, so that we really eventually all start to kind of speak this language. And it is supported by our highest levels in the company. You know, we start out almost all of our enterprise athlete sessions with a video of our CEO and president, Fabrizio Freida, who's been a huge fan of the enterprise athlete for a long time. And I do believe lives by the principles of it. And I think that he's very aware of his energy management. He's a great role model for it. And so I think when you see that and you know that it's just important to our company, gives a credibility to it. And I think it also gives, again, that permission to learn and that permission in the flow of work to think about this. It doesn't have to be something you do outside of work. It doesn't have to be something that you have to do on your own time. Of course you can. But we want people to use the tools while they're working.
That's great. That's really helpful. And having like different ways to do fun stuff that can tie into your physical or your emotional. And so you're constantly using it in some way. And then, you know, the more that people are connected to it or have the opportunity to go through it, I'm sure they also become promoters of this, right, to others that are not involved. So I can see how organically this can grow. I'm curious, how long does it take for you to certify someone to be a trainer? Because I do recall that was part of their model, that an executive would go through and then potentially become certified, and then they can, deliver this to their teams.
Yeah.
Lauren, do you want to share? Because you've certified some of our trainers.
Yeah, it's a model that we developed that is essentially, it's not as intense as a traditional T3 It is a series of virtual meetings where they first experience the program either in person or virtually, the instructor-led part. They have to take the digital experience, and then they have a couple of sessions with myself or someone on the energy team where we're going over how to deliver, making sure that they understand the science, understand obviously the scope and parameter of some of the recommendations that we deliver, especially in that physical realm. You know, we're not being prescriptive. We're always making recommendations that are heavily evidence-based, and also as they relate to energy management. So we have to go through that kind of training. And then we have them co-deliver a program. So they're with one of the energy team, they're delivering sections of it, they're getting feedback from that, and then we kind of send them off. And they tend to be eager to be delivering to a particular team that they already have identified as someone who is in need. So, you know, whether it's their own team or they've identified, you know, particular employee population that they're eager to come to, they're tending to bring that, those new participants to us, and now they're able to deliver. So it's, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 different sessions. It takes maybe a month or 2 to really onboard them if we're meeting on a regular basis.
One colleague comes to mind that we recently met who came forward. She was exposed to the content, and she came forward to the team and said, I'd really love to think about becoming a facilitator and joining the energy team. Meaning she had a background in college athletics before she transitioned into working at Estée Lauder companies. She works in our supply chain part of our business now, but she was able to tie in that sort of athlete part, right, of all of this, and the athletic mindset and the best practices of how athletes train themselves, right? Because we don't want to forget about that. It is this sort of idea that, and as you know, Rachel, like athleticism, you don't have to have physical ability, right, to do this, but the concepts of it, the structure of the framework of it is rooted in so much that has to do with being a great athlete. And so it was such a natural evolution for her. It made so much sense to her. And it was a pleasure to then help her learn the material because she had a whole new perspective on it, which is always so interesting. People bring themselves to it. And I think what Lauren does beautifully when she trains our new facilitators is we try to just encourage them to bring themselves, to the material. You really are there to facilitate discussion. Yes, we want you to know the science. Yes, we want you to feel comfortable with the concepts, but we want the audience members, the employees, the learners that you interact with to come to their own sort of natural conclusions and discover things about themselves. And there needs to be a space, a safe space within those sessions to be able to do that. And I think that's what makes a great enterprise athlete facilitator.
And what also I find interesting is that if you think about the athlete, and you think about how much they train to be an athlete, a physical athlete, right? Whether it's a tennis player, a baseball player, a dancer, they spend years and years in perfecting their skill and their ability. Yet you put leaders, or you put or managers in the corporate space into these positions where they're training, but they're not training necessarily at the level as a physical athlete is. And they may have a year program that they're training, or, now it's changing where we're providing more support, more chunk size pieces of support and development, where I think it's getting better so that people feel that they don't have to leave their workplace to develop or to gain knowledge or expertise. And so I think this model and how you look at the physical athlete or the mental athlete or the, all these different elements that make you a full person or bring you to your fullest potential is so important to, and how you perform in the workplace. Because if you think about a lot of what you do in the workplace, sometimes you're experiencing it for the first time, a conversation that you may not have had that somebody brought up, or a challenge, or different ways that we have to get things done with the resources we have. And so I think that's what makes this approach so powerful, is the different elements that you work on.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think several of us were commenting. We had watched the Simone Biles documentary recently. I think it's on Netflix. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
just the physical, right? I mean, you have all the physical ability in the world, and you see the importance of the mental toughness, the emotional toughness to navigate that at those high levels of athleticism. And it's really the same thing with, executives. And so you have to, so you're not being asked to, do flips in the air, but you are meant to take care of yourself physically in order to be able to show up as your best self, in order to lead your team and lead the organization, and all of those other components fall into it as well. So it's a really powerful analogy, and I think people really relate to it. It resonates with them as they think about their full person, total person design, and all of the things that they bring to the table as an employee,
Mm-hmm.
but then also as all the roles that they play in their lives outside of their job and outside of their work, is really important. And there's a powerful moment that we include within Enterprise Athlete. Usually it's at the close of the session, where there's this beautiful video, and it basically circles in on how much time do we have, right? How much time do we have on this planet, and how much time do we have doing the things that we love and being with people that we love, and how do we manage that? How do we think about time? We all have the same amount of hours in a day. Some people seem really productive, and you're like, they must have 37 hours in their day. But it's usually because they navigate their lives like an athlete, and they make the most of the time. They manage their energy. That's the key message there. And they're able to integrate concepts like this into how they structure their lives and get the most out of the day. Lauren, you're an expert in that space. You want to share more in that?
Well, I was just going to say, one of the things that I love the most about this course, and especially the way that Estee Lauder Companies has created, embraced, and deployed it, is it's not lip service. It's not it's not just about well-being in the sense of, hey, eat some healthy snacks and, put down your devices here and there, and then you're going to be a better employee for us. It's really at the highest level. It's looking at how are we showing up as our best in every area of life, and really focusing in on some of those key tenets that you can learn from the world of sport, which is having that higher sense of why, clarity of goals, clarity of values, telling the right story, managing the stories that we tell and the perspective, and then just even the element of training, investing in small but meaningful and strategic habits and rituals in our day-to-day life that help us navigate the high demand and turbulent, high pressure environments that we find ourselves in. So even outside of the well-being space, this I think that this program and the way that it's been designed and again deployed and cascaded out to employees is teaching a lesson that is more valuable than just living in the space of well-being. This is really about investing in an employee in all areas of their life and their performance in those areas. So to me, it's a leadership development program as much as it's a well-being program. And Rachel, I know that you were in the corporate athletes, so you can probably see what I mean there, but it is really much more than just the sum of all of its parts, I guess.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And did you find, were there any folks on your team or extended teams that pushed back or that were not on board, that did not see value or challenged how they were going to fit this in with their way or their thoughts around health and wellness?
I think that where we see sometimes um, folks maybe falling down with it or not able to implement it, possibly in the way that they want or also in the way that we hope for them to, is they try to bite off too much. And so there's this, really, Lauren alluded to it, these really brilliant ways of implementing that are baked into it called micro actions. And we call them too small to fail. And so it's just as simple as like once a day, get up from your desk and just try to, take a mental break or stretch or, and as you build these habits and as you build these muscles, you can increase the frequency, increase the intentionality of it. You don't have to go from 0 to now all of a sudden you eat completely clean, you sleep 8 hours a night, you meditate, you work out, you're like journaling, you're doing all right, you're Superman and Superwoman all of a sudden. So these micro actions, I think, help. And we really try to encourage people to do those. And again, meet them where they're at, because they might obviously say, this program sounds fantastic, I don't even know where to start. And there is some internal work that has to go on as well. And it touches on this, which I think is also really powerful, which is the stories that we tell ourselves. We address this a lot in the program. What are the stories that you've told yourself or that others have told you in your life that have maybe prevented you from showing up as your best self? Is it something a parent told you, a spouse, a sibling, a teacher, a boss, you yourself? And where are those stories coming from? Why are they there? How do you unpack them? How do you understand them? And maybe it's a different narrative for you. Maybe that story served you at one point, doesn't serve you anymore. Maybe it never served you. And I think those are powerful moments of aha for learners to say, I really have maybe been blocked in this particular area, and I didn't even realize it until this moment where I thought about it. So you've got to give into it, and you've got to also be willing to show up with a certain level of self-awareness to be able to ask yourself some of these tough questions and really kind of dig a little bit deeper, because that's how you have a breakthrough. So I think that's where, if people don't succeed with it, I think that's maybe some of the blocks. It's either too much or they're not quite ready to have those conversations with themselves to figure out exactly how they can move forward. Would you agree, Lauren?
Yes. And I was thinking about this as you asked that question, Rachel. Even this morning, one of my favorite things I love about this program is when people are wrestling with it. The cognitive dissonance that shows up on the faces of people, for example, in the program this morning, going, yeah, this sounds great in theory, but I don't have time for this. And then really working through that, having conversations with each other. And you can start to see kind of that locus of control start to shift. And they start to see, once they're looking through the strategies, how to actually implement them, how small they really can be to have meaningful downstream impact. Then you start to see the wheels turning and those light bulbs. In other words, what Todd was saying, the story starts to shift, that they do have control more than they think in these maybe high workload environments or high demand environments. The other challenge that we all face as facilitators and wrestlers with this content is, it's not just about us, but the systems and processes and conversations that we need to have, where we start to take this content and bring it to people around us, the stakeholders on our teams and in our lives, up, down, and laterally, and have the meaningful conversations about how to reimagine how we're working. That I think for me, the most inspiring part of this content is when people take it to other people and they start to go, I think we could do this, how we're conducting this particular meeting. We can maybe do it a little differently. Maybe we shave 5 minutes off of it and give ourselves a break. That's when we start to see them wrestle with the content and then actually start to embrace it in these small, very, very meaningful moments where there's a lot of return on that investment. So I personally love when people are skeptical at first or challenge it, because I think that's where really the deeper learning starts to happen, and they really embrace and have those tough conversations.
As we're kind of wrapping up here, how are you tracking? How are you measuring the results? How do you determine, and I know you have shared quite a bit of results. How are you illustrating those, or what is your approach to measuring the ROI?
Yeah, I mean it's a mix of qualitative and quantitative metrics. We certainly can track how many employees, complete the different aspects of different, attend a live session, attend a virtual session, complete or engage with the digital experience. So we have a sense of what that looks like from that perspective. And then there's, just the qualitative feedback that we receive, and the impact that the content has on folks as they bring it to their organizations or embed it within the culture of their teams. We see the volume increasing in terms of people wanting to use this, learn more about it, and it's becoming. I think we've used the term before in this call, organic. I think it's an organic growth within the organization, where all of a sudden you're just seeing like, oh, people are really living this and they're talking about it. They're using the language, which is really exciting. And then we have been encouraging. Colleagues where applicable to have, I alluded to this earlier, a wellness goal, and to think about how do I articulate a wellness goal even in the scope of a performance appraisal plan for a fiscal year, and then ask others, whether it's my manager or colleagues, to hold me accountable to it and tie it to your business objectives, right? So how will this wellness goal support what I'm doing as an employee, and will it support our business? Whether that could be, like Lauren was saying, making sure that meetings end at a certain time, and you giving extra time for people to take a recovery break, and how is that impacting productivity? So things like that. So there's lots of ways to measure, and we'll just continue to look at those over time.
Right. And as we are looking at my last question here, we have our human capital management outlook study that we're collecting data on as we look at priorities for HCM leaders into the following year. What percentage or what do you see, Todd, in Estée Lauder? How much are you going to be focusing on wellness or on this program and supporting it? And what is your point of view on that?
Yeah. I think this program is an evergreen program, and it supports anyone in times of growth, times of prosperity, and also in difficult business climates. And to be, transparent, we're going through a bit of a difficult business climate at Estée Lauder Companies as we try to navigate sort of post-pandemic recovery. Some of our markets, the dynamics have shifted in some of our markets. So, long story short, I think employees are feeling that and feeling the importance of shifting the business and putting ourselves back on a really positive trajectory as a company. And so I think a program like this, again, becomes, even more important and relevant. And so we're encouraging HR leaders, we're encouraging leaders to say, don't forget that this exists. Your well-being is important. We need you to be healthy, happy, well-adjusted, aware, and utilizing tools that we have. We have a full suite of wellness programs and tools, right, through benefits at the company. And then we try, wherever that's spoken about, we try to say, and don't forget about enterprise athlete, right? Because that's just not being, it fits into the whole sort of ecosystem and wellness kind of concept at the company. So, yeah, it's even more important than ever. And we'll just keep leaning into it. Yeah.
Just one more, another, just curious, do you ever, not mandate it, but is there a benefit that employees receive from a wellness or by going through it? Is there an advantage in addition to all the health?
Yes. Yes, there is actually. We've been working to sort of build this out a little bit more robustly, but we partner with a company, I'm sure a lot of folks may be listening also, with Virgin Pulse. So with Virgin Pulse, you're able to track things like your steps, your healthy eating, your sleep, and you're able to receive points, which go into a bank, which then can result in rewards for you as an employee. So the enterprise athlete and all the things that are part of that can be part of the way that you track your well-being and then have those benefits. So yes, thanks for mentioning it, because it is a great tie-in. And then there is some sort of tangible reward and program that you can partake in order to get the benefit from it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And Lauren, are you seeing, from your community, is there a continued focus on wellness, and do you anticipate that increasing in the coming year, or kind of staying the same? What do you think?
I mean, I've seen it continue to rise in importance, just, of course, in my little pocket of the world, which is, human capital and human performance. And I think as an industry agnostic value add to any organization. And I think that in the climate that we're at, just as a global workforce, I think, to Todd's point, it's becoming more important than ever. Do all companies embrace it like Estee Lauder companies does? Do they double down in turbulent times? Not always. And you can see that with how they allocate or reallocate resources or not to those different areas. I'm so proud to say that Estee Lauder companies just continues to double down no matter the climate. It's always of utmost importance. Utmost importance. You can see that in the fact that this is a legacy program that they're forever going to have and forever going to push. And transparently, not all organizations that I work with are the same, but it's really neat. And I personally use them as a bit of a brag or a showcase when I say this is sort of a best practice. So you should look at what they have done here. And I hope that they continue to do so. I know that they will. But yeah, I think it's still increasing in importance. Maybe not in all industries, but I think all industries can value from it. So I hope that they continue to underscore the importance of it.
Well, on that note, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Todd. It was a pleasure to chat with you both today and sharing your background and the model and program and around the executive athlete that you've incorporated at Estee Lauder. So it's fascinating. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being part of our program, and hopefully we'll continue this discussion and hear more about it at our conference next year or on other at other events as well. And it's a pleasure. Thank you both. Have a great day. And thank you all for listening in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.